when Sharon and I were working on the book, I was looking for a quote from Joel Gallen. So I said to Joel, I said, look, when you and I started, I was doing 80% tours and 20% television. And over the next 15 or 20 years, those ratios did this, right? And what happened is that basically I got invited to do more and more television, and I found it interesting and fulfilling. And I think somewhere along in there, the perception in the world was that he's a TV guy, but it wasn't any decision I made. It just sort of evolved like that. Tour I did was 1999. I was talking to Winky at Tate the other day about doing a tour for somebody. I'd like to do one more.
Today on Geezers of Gear, we're joined by Emmy Award-winning lighting designer Allen Branton. With a 50-year career spanning tours, television, and live events, from MTV Unplugged and the Super Bowl halftime show to tours with U2, Diana Ross, and the Rolling Stones, Allen has lit some of the most iconic stages in entertainment history. Allen's work has earned multiple Primetime Emmy Awards and nominations, and he is a co-author of Lighting Design Beyond Theater, a process for the evolving entertainment industry. With 50 years of incredible work, Allen has shaped the visual language of modern live entertainment across every continent except Antarctica. Please welcome the legend, Allen Branton. Caught you mid-sip. How are you, Allen?
Good to see you. Very well. You?
Yeah, I'm doing really, really well. I'm back in Florida now, so I went from, well, it's funny because I left Banff, Canada a couple of weeks ago, and there was a foot of snow in my front yard. I took pictures and stuff. It was just beautiful. It looked like Christmas. And, so a couple of days ago, I said to my fiance, hey, let's look at the camera, because we've got cameras. When I miss the mountains, I just look at cameras from my house.
Right.
And, I expected to see a couple feet of snow. And right as I turn on the camera, I see a guy riding by in shorts and a T-shirt on a mountain bike. I'm like, what? So, it's been like 50, 60 degrees every day for the past week or so.
It's cold here in Bozeman.
Yeah.
It was warm up until just a couple of days ago. It snowed night before last. Now it's melted.
Yeah.
It's going to be in this schizophrenic state for about 2 or 3 weeks, and then it'll be winter for good, I think.
Yeah. So you live in Bozeman. I love Bozeman.
I do.
I think I'm about a 7-hour drive from there, 7.5-hour drive from Bozeman, because I used to ship my car in and then just fly into Bozeman and pick it up and drive across the border, because it's hard to ship straight into Canada from Florida. And I have a really good friend who's from Bozeman, who I don't know if you know him. He's a magician.
Probably not.
J. Owen
My
House.
wife and I've only been here. Sorry, what was his name?
J. Owen House.
No. Now, I wonder if he's part of the Owen House hardware family.
It's possible. I don't know.
They are sort of Bozeman legends. They have this amazing hardware store downtown. Like one of those places that no matter what you are looking for, they have it.
Yeah. Fish hooks, hot dogs, whatever. Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. I love those stores, by the way. The
the
sort of small town
for
general store
years.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. This episode is brought to you by Acme Lighting. Since 1985, Acme has been raising the bar in entertainment lighting, designing and creating fixtures that are powerful, reliable, and built to inspire. Over nearly 4 decades, Acme has grown into a global leader, trusted by designers, rental houses, and productions in more than 130 countries. Their product line covers everything from high-output profiles that bring precision and punch to brilliant washes and battens that paint a stage in color to rugged IP-rated gear built to survive the elements. Acme has a full lineup of dynamic effects that grab attention and keep audiences hooked. Every Acme fixture is engineered with performance and creativity in mind, helping designers push boundaries and bring bold ideas to life. Whether it's a global tour, a broadcast studio, a theater, or the biggest stage on the planet, Acme delivers. So if you're looking for lighting that's bold, innovative, and built for the spotlight, Acme is your product. Learn more and explore their full catalog at acmelighting.com. I wonder, I'm going to have to ask him next time I speak to him. I think he's in Vegas right now, but for the longest time, he wouldn't go do shows in Vegas or anything. And he created this touring machine where he bought all the gear, he bought the stage, he bought the bus, he bought the truck, everything. And his whole family worked for the traveling circus, basically. And what they did is they went to all these small towns, you know, in Montana, in North Dakota, South Dakota, in all the states around. And they had a call center that would sell tickets for like the local gymnasium, and they'd put 2,000 people in there, or the local community center and they'd put 2,000 people in there. And they were usually the only act that came in every year and gave these people entertainment, right? And so he did really well because he was literally the only game in town. And just a fantastic family, really, really nice guy. But I got to check into whether the Owen House hardware store is part of the family. Same family.
My wife and I have only been here, let's see, 6 or 7 years. We've been married 43 years, and
Is that it?
Yeah. I'm I'm from Little Rock, Arkansas originally, and we went to high school together, but we weren't particularly close then. And then when I went freelance and came back to Arkansas for a time, we met again. And after we married, I said, I'd like you to see something. And I took her to Wyoming, and we rented a house then and there. And so have, for the most part, I've lived in the Rockies somewhere.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah.
You know,
most of our married life.
It's funny because my now ex-wife and I, we actually took my mother to the Banff Springs Hotel. And it was, I don't remember, it was something significant, her birthday or something. And we stayed there for a weekend, and we were leaving the hotel and driving back to Calgary to go to the airport and drop my mom off in Calgary. And my ex-wife said, you know, I really love it here. It's so beautiful. I'd love to spend more time here. And I stopped to fill up the car in Canmore, which is right next door to Banff. And I saw a real estate magazine and picked it up and handed it to her and said, here you go, find something. And, you know, I ended up buying a condo, and then eventually 10 years later, 5 years later, built a house. And I've had a house there now for just over 20 years, I think.
That's
right
cool.
at 20 years.
That's
yeah.
Cool.
So I really do like it up there.
Red and I went to Jackson Hole in 1982 before anybody even knew what that was. It was incredibly sleepy.
Yeah.
And all the businesses closed in the shoulder seasons, and it was incredibly hard to access. There's no crummy air service, and you know, it was just, so we built a house there, and our kids were born there and everything, and then later on we left for a little while, and when we came back to the West, we chose Bozeman for various reasons. Jackson Hole we didn't recognize anymore, and Bozeman has a fantastic airport, so I can still go
work
everywhere. Most places I can go nonstop anymore.
Wow. That's nice. Can't even do that from here, from West Palm Beach, where I live.
Yeah.
But it's amazing what has happened. It's the same thing, by the way, in where I am in Alberta. But it's amazing what's happened with both Montana and Wyoming, like rock stars and movie stars and stuff have
God,
all bought these mega properties.
I wish I hadn't sold that house I built.
Yeah,
But that's a whole other story.
it happens.
We used to call that the house that David built because I built that house the year after I did my first David Bowie tour.
Oh,
And
wow.
that kind of was a launch point for me.
Yeah.
In terms of getting noticed,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to get in that, but
Thank you for joining me today on Geezers of Gear. This episode is brought to you by Delicate Productions. Since 1980, Delicate Productions has mastered the art of lighting, audio, and video in high-energy live settings, from iconic music festivals to global tours, corporate launches, award shows, sporting events, and beyond. For Delicate, the only way to get it right is to get it just right. With precision, creativity, and full-service production capabilities, they turn bold visions into moments that linger in pop culture's subconscious. Need a single touring partner to handle audio, lighting, video rigging, and production design? Delicate delivers it all flawlessly. Located in the greater Los Angeles area and part of the Live Events Productions Network, Delicate has access to a deep nationwide inventory of gear and is powered by a highly skilled team amplifying your tour's full potential. Whether you need rigging, production design, or end-to-end show management, they deliver it all seamlessly. And it doesn't end there. Delicate delivers a full 360-degree production experience by teaming up with sister company Pyrotechnico, experts in fireworks, special effects, and drone light shows. Together, they create truly immersive, multi-sensory experiences that elevate every show. Visit delicate.com to see how unforgettable events get made. That's delicate.com, where technical brilliance meets creative impact.
I want to start out because, you started a little bit before that. I think you said you started at 21, but the bio of yours that I read said 23. So where were you between 21 and 23? Because 23,
Well,
I think you went to Shoko, right?
no, I was at Shoko 2 weeks after I turned 21,
Oh, wow.
and I was there for almost 5 years, between 4 and 5 years. And when I got there, they'd been in business 3 or 4 years, I guess, and they had just recently added a lighting department to their sound company.
Yeah.
At that time, even 1973, they had 8 complete sound systems touring North America. Very impressive people.
Yeah.
And so I get named. They didn't call us electricians in those days. We were roadies.
Yeah.
And I get put out on a Beach Boys tour about 3 months after I get there, I guess. And Kirby White, who was the lighting department head, was out there LDing that show. And he announces after we're out there 2 or 3 weeks that Led Zeppelin is coming up for them, and that's their most important client and tricky to deal with client. And he's going to have to go back and prep that. And so I'm going to be the LD for the Beach Boys. And I'm like, excuse me? And so,
Did you have experience though before that? Like when you started
I had
at Shoko?
experience in a band. I'd been in a band and a band leader in my youth, and so I had a sense of, what a show is and a stage, and what constitutes, the nuts and bolts of a presentation, and he could tell that from being around me, I suppose. So,
But you'd never done lighting, and now you're the
No.
LD for the Beach
No.
Boys, like a few
So-
months later. Wow.
So he says, all right, we're going to have you watch me do this. You run the console, and I'll call the spots, and then we'll go to a place where you do both, and it's all written down on these 3x5 cards. It's a 2-scene preset in those days, not very crude. And so he indoctrinates me for about a week and then just leaves me there. And Kenny Whitwright was the lead sound engineer and the senior showco man on that tour. He was an audio man in those days, and that was before the color changer and all that.
Yeah.
And so he and I have known each other for however many years that is, 52, I think.
Wow.
I was just with him about a week ago. We were fishing out here, and yeah.
How's he doing? I haven't heard from him or seen him in years.
He's doing great.
Yeah. I like Kenny.
We've been fishing every summer for the last 4 or 5 years.
That's cool.
But anyway, so I get dropped into the deep end doing that, and I do okay, I guess. And then in middle of summer that same year, 73, they started me as the LD on the Three Dog Night national tour.
Jeez.
And that was a really interesting experience because Kirby, the department head, he decided that because you had 3 featured people in that band, that someone calling spots and running the console was a little too many balls in the air. So he said, I want you to call the spots because there's all this choreography between the 3 people. I want you to call the spots only, and we'll have someone else run the console, but you're the senior man. And so that was a really formative experience because 2 things. I was able to watch the show from all over the house, high, low, left, right, far, close, because all I had to have was a headset.
A radio, yeah.
And I could watch it without having to take my eyes away from it and look at a console. So probably what I think I believe started then.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. So did shows after that, were you able to use the same format, or did you have to go back to the console again?
Let's see. After that, I did the Guess Who, and I did both. I called the spots and
ran the board. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what the others might have been. I did the band, and then they put me into a advance man role for about a year, where I would travel around with a rigger and go to all the cities that their A clients were going to visit, because this would have been 1974 and 75. Nobody had rigged lighting and sound in all those venues before. So we had to go around and ensure that you could hang the PA system and hang everything and keep the sight lines clear.
Yeah.
Because, as you know, all roads lead to the box office.
Yeah. Interesting. To me, it's wild. Like, you said something before we started recording, and you've already made it come completely full circle true, but you couldn't have done what you did today. Like, you couldn't have started in the industry the way that you did and got to where you got today.
That job where I was going around to all the major cities in North America representing the Who, Paul McCartney, etc. Genesis, I think, one time. I would have been 24 or 25.
Wow. With literally like 3 or 4 years of experience in the industry.
But now the rigger that traveled with me was a more experienced as a rigger. But see, this guy, his name was Al Kane. He had come from the shipyards in Rhode Island. He was not a entertainment rigger either. And anyway, it was just so new what we were trying to do. Now remember, the people who owned Showco, none of them were more than early 30s. Everybody was young.
Yeah. And the whole industry was, in a sense.
And there was no sense that you shouldn't be doing what you're doing. Who says, and in our book, we interviewed Rusty Burchett, and he talked about the fact that when they were building those lighting systems and sound systems and rigging systems and all that, he said none of the things that you needed to accomplish those tasks could be bought anywhere. You had to make it. You had to invent it and make
Right.
it from
Yeah.
nothing.
That was the industry back then.
Yeah. And so somebody who was in their 40s or 50s and an established business person wouldn't have tackled something like that. It would have looked ridiculous to them, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so amazing. And so, 3 or 4 years in, you're already advancing shows like The Who and Paul
Yeah.
McCartney. That just
Yeah.
blows my mind right there. So you stayed at Showco for what, 5 years?
Well, let's see. I started in January of 1973, and I think I left in the middle of 78.
Okay.
Okay. So I got an offer to do a freelance job for Alice Cooper.
Oh.
And it was going to pay what in those days seemed like really good money. And
which tour would that have been? The Alice Cooper show?
Madhouse,
Not Welcome to My Nightmare.
Wait. King of the Silver Screen.
Oh, okay. Yes, that was a couple
one
tours on.
with a big TV set on stage.
Okay. Yeah.
And the reason I took that job, I love Showco and I love the people, but they decided after I'd done all this advanced man work that they wanted to create a department that would do nothing but that, and I would be the department head. And they gave me an office and all this stuff, and I just couldn't do that. I missed doing shows.
Yeah.
And so when this offer came, I said, well, here we go.
It's amazing the little decisions that you make in life that shape your career, right? Because, I mean, probably at that point, you're like, you probably had to think about it at least, like, oh, a desk and I don't have to travel so much. And,
But see,
maybe not.
See,
You
I'm,
were still
I'm
so
26 or 7 years old. I like traveling.
Travel's cool.
I'd never been anywhere before.
Yeah.
Really,
yeah.
Before that job.
Yeah.
And I left there right before the truck and bus era.
Yeah.
We drove everywhere.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I sort of cherish is that I can say that I drove a vehicle into every one of the 48 states.
Wow. Yeah. It was also before Verilight, it was before...
they started that right after I left there. But then then I was, after Genesis, I was the first designer that they that used them.
Oh, really? So they went back to you and said, what do you think?
Well, I don't know if they went back to me or I went back to them, but we put them on the my Diana Ross show, which was in Vegas at that time, and we were VL1s and so that was really cool.
Yeah. So when did the house that David built, when did David come about, and how did that come about? Because that was obviously a pivotal moment.
That was another, that was 1983, and that was another Showco connection.
Yeah.
They were going to do his tour, and they recommended me to them. And we rehearsed in Dallas at a soundstage there. And that's probably the best rock show I've ever seen to this day.
Which tour was that
exception
one?
Sorry?
Which tour was that one? That had to be like around the China Girl era or
Serious
something.
Moonlight, yeah.
Yeah.
China Girl was a hit right then.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Let's Dance.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a big moment for David. Yeah. So you say it was the best rock show ever. Why is that? What was unique?
I think it was the sort of most polished, unified presentation, really radical for rock and roll at that time. We had a wonderful set that Mark Ravitz designed, and forgive me, I can't recite the name, but he commissioned the guy who was the in-house wardrobe person at the Metropolitan Opera to design costumes for himself and the band.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so the thing had a look, before lighting ever showed up.
Yeah.
And I had a certain amount of experience by that time. I'd been lighting my own stuff for 10 years. So,
you knew what you wanted.
And we had 40 Vari-Lights on that thing, and we used them for the first time, probably about a third of them, as shin bursters, doing a horizontal focus. And I was at the set company in San Francisco, FM Productions, finishing the light plot, and we called down to Dallas and said, "Can we put these things in the wings like a ballet? Will they behave if you turn them 90 degrees and clamp them to a vertical pipe?" And they said, "We don't know. Let us do a test."
Wow.
So 24 hours later, they called back and said, "Well, they seem to tolerate it okay. Go ahead."
Yeah.
So
a day. That's a long enough test. Yeah.
Well, they broke all the time anyway.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And that's not to be critical. I mean, that was a monumental achievement.
Yeah, of course.
But they were fragile, let's say.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that was when they had the curtains and the techs back there working on them and stuff. It was all very magical.
Had a full-time tech.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm really delighted and gratified that I've lived long enough to see that technology become utterly reliable.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just talking to somebody about this yesterday. The one great thing about being old is that we've seen all of these different sort of versions of everything, and I was in the moving light business when moving lights first started. I was part of the original gang of moving light salespeople. And, that's cool. Like I wouldn't have, as much as I'd like to be 20 years old, I wouldn't want to be born in, 2010.
My wife has a sign up in the kitchen that says, "Honey, you couldn't pay me to be 20.
Yeah, that's a good point. Especially now with all this stuff going on, which I want to talk to you about a bit later too.
But
so,
I don't think it's probably been 10 years since I designed anything that wasn't 100% automated.
Really?
Yeah.
That's incredible. And
with the exception of, a footlight or something that just sits there.
Yeah. On that original David Bowie tour, I would think that if someone said, hey, in 20, 30, 40 years, whatever, you're going to be designing shows with only moving lights, you probably would have been like, get out of here, knucklehead.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
well, just because of the reliability issues back then,
that was a design component or feature or criteria, maybe. Given how unreliable that stuff could be, you were very careful not to put a automated light in a position or assigned to a task that you really had to have 100% without fail, like a key light on an important performer or stuff like
automated follow spots now, you wouldn't have used VL1s for automated follow spots, I guess.
No, I wouldn't I wouldn't have used any automated light up until, very recently for that task.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. So, I think another major moment for you and for the industry really was when you somehow decided to transition from touring, from lighting live performers on tour to lighting from, I guess, behind a camera lens or whatever. Um, so where did that come from? What caused that sort of transition in your career? And B, I'd love to hear, sort of your mentality and philosophy that developed as far as the differences and nuances related to lighting from behind a camera to, lighting the performer on stage.
I'll try to make this short enough to be practical.
It's
The
all good. It's
first
a podcast.
Okay, the first time this topic came up, I was in Las Vegas with Diane Ross, and we were told that HBO had bought the rights to record her show at Caesar's Palace. I think this would have been 1979 or 80, 79, I think. And so these people show up from HBO. The director Marty Callner, who died a year or two ago, and Greg Brunton, the lighting designer who was with Ferrantino at the time, and he died a few years ago. And they both showed up and saw the show and started in on me about how much they loved it and how much they had to change it. And
Wow.
so, but that turned out to be a really, really interesting experience because they really actually did like it. It was a really great show. And they completely scrapped the set and brought in a different set. It did the same things theatrically, but it was rigged to fly, so it was just a more flexible scenario for television. And Greg was very generous. He said, "Look, I'm going to just go through your show cue by cue and explain to you what works for us and what doesn't." And he was there with me every afternoon for about 2 weeks. She would play there 3 or 4 weeks in those days. So he starts doing this, and I get all this, you know, uh, theory about color saturation and contrast ratio and all this stuff. And so, long story short, we get the thing kind of shaped up the way he likes it. And every time we make a change, we see it that night on stage, right? Because she's playing every night, 2 shows a night.
Yeah.
So we get to the first time the cameras come in, and it looks pretty good. It's not bad. And then they recorded the next night and the next night, I think. And the edited show was sensational. And I couldn't have done that by myself at all, but I watched and learned what he was saying, and I thought, this is really interesting. This is really interesting. And so by the time the Bowie thing comes along, which is about 4 years later, I've done some other stuff for television, much of it with Greg there, because I'd
Yeah.
request that he be the one to come as a consultant. So anyway, the Bowie thing comes up, and we decide, okay, we're going to declare that we want to do this ourselves. And we won that argument with the producer and the network, and it was really good television. You can still see it on YouTube and stuff. It's quite something.
Yeah.
The cameras are crude, but the lighting is reproduced pretty faithfully because I kind of knew how to squeeze all that contrast by then and get it to photograph. So after that, I am deemed competent to do television, which was wrong. But to answer your original question, I thought that if you do a rock show on television, I thought, well, the highest uh, the highest vision you can have is that it look authentic at home. It doesn't look like somebody came in and washed it down like a track meet,
Yeah.
which is what they used to do in those days mostly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we started doing that, and we got to do a few more shows like that. By the way, the producer of that Bowie show is my oldest client, and I did every show with them for the next 40 years until they retired a few years
Oh
ago.
my goodness. Wow.
And one of the next ones that came along, Joel Gallen, I started working for him about 3 or 4 years after that, and I've done all of his shows ever since the late 80s because he believed in that same notion that music on television should look authentic, not like television. One of his classic critiques of stuff like that is that it looks like it was shot in the doctor's office,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the style comes from that ethos.
Yeah. Well, and me being a knucklehead moving light sales guy at the time, my observation was always just that, in comes Alan Branton with a whole bunch of white lights in the house, and it's just this big sunlight, that happens over the audience basically, and that's how big rock concerts get lit for film or TV. And I'm sure it was much more nuanced and much more thought went into it than that. But that's always what it appeared to be to me, because I was a moving light sales guy, and at the time, moving lights weren't that bright either. So
right.
We're putting these moving lights on stage, and you're just coming out there and going, boom, here's all this white light.
That's really interesting. I think it's poorly understood to this day.
100% it is.
How bloody dim they were in those days.
Yeah.
They were dim.
Yeah.
Now, and see, we brought all those pars in to light an audience because if you didn't see that the audience was there and that they were excited and thrilled and all that stuff, you don't have a television show.
Yeah, it looked like it was recorded in a studio.
Now,
or something.
today, we use a high output automated lighting system on the audience, and they just look like a beautiful color palette. And every once in a while, when they get super excited, you can lift it a little bit, and it's all, really subtle and appropriate to the moment.
Yeah. I would assume a lot of the technology now in the cameras is so much better that, you're not as concerned by color temperature and all those different things.
That David Bowie show, we keyed him at 100-foot candles. Ooh. And the TV show I'm going to do next week, we will key the performers probably at about 15.
Really?
And so, yeah, certainly when they're doing music. And so that allows the whole thing to be way less, bright and obnoxious.
Well, again, just another dumb question from me, because this is where my questions are going to come from. So what about video screens? Like, is that still a battle? I would assume that that's a massive battle when you're lighting for TV, because it is the sort of loudest voice in the room, in a sense.
That was trouble for all of us in the early years, but now there's just a lot more understanding and collaboration between the departments and so forth. Because the big problem with those screens in the beginning was that they were designed to be used outdoors in daylight.
Yeah.
And so if you turn that thing up full brightness inside, it's just impossible to compete with.
Mm-hmm.
And so over time, we figured out, and this is through a lot of trial and error, you figured out that depending on the screen product, you want to turn it down to at the most 15% of full,
15.
and
1
15,
5. Wow.
and sometimes even less than 10. Right
Jeez.
now that depends on the product. Some of the screen products wouldn't tolerate that sort of limiting, and they'd
Yeah.
start to misbehave and pixelate and
Bad
shit.
things would happen. Yeah.
Yeah, bad things would
Yeah.
happen. But that was basically the trouble, is that those things were too bright compared to anything you could do to compete with them. But nowadays everybody's kind of understands that, I think, you know. And the way you can tell is if you see a picture in the press or news footage or, stuff online or whatever of somebody's show. If this, it's rare to see something like, well, take Taylor Swift, for example. It's rare to see pictures of her in the press where the screens aren't balanced to her close-up. The
Yeah.
whole thing is calibrated very nicely, and that's just a matter of the business maturing into itself, if you will.
Yeah. Well, and I assume everyone plays nicely. Like maybe I think because you were such a willing participant in that first show that you did, the Diana Ross one, where you really did want to learn from the experts coming in, right? And
Right.
so you were probably very flexible and stuff. But I would assume that back then there was some attitude being thrown around too by the band LD, who's like, I'm not going to let you ruin my show like this, you know.
I did a lot of consulting jobs in those
Yeah.
days, like showed up as the Greg Brunton TV consultant person,
Yeah. Yeah.
because I was deemed to know enough about it to protect the product
Mm,
in that way. They didn't say it that way, but that's what they meant.
right.
And there, you would meet LDs who did not want to change a thing.
Yeah.
They thought the purpose of our recording their show was to faithfully reproduce what had happened there. And the problem was that the cameras were so primitive that they couldn't reproduce it. It had to be adapted to the limitations of the camera, the contrast ratio and color rendition and all that stuff, or you just couldn't see it.
Yeah.
This element would be 3 times too bright, and that one would be so dark it would disappear, and the blues would be so saturated that they would tear and pixelate. And so I still think that I've never done as good a job at coaching that as Greg Brunton did for me the first time I met him. He
Really? Yeah.
was he was smooth. Oh man, he was good.
Well, I
He
guess
just
if you just
made
come in,
he made me want it.
yeah,
You know,
that makes
he
sense. That makes sense.
he invited me into a new world.
Yeah.
Um,
As opposed to coming in swinging a big stick around and saying,
yeah,
"You will
yeah,
do as I tell you to,
right,
Mr. Branton."
right,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah. He brought you on board with him instead of,
right.
just taking over. Yeah. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. So, I mean, at this time when you were doing, by the time you did David Bowie, which, as you said, was 4 years after the first one, did you at some point just say, I'm doing a total pivot and I'm getting completely out of touring and this is my
No,
new gig?
no. It's interesting. When Sharon and I were working on the book, I was looking for a quote from Joel Gallen, and I wrote him a letter and pointed out that since I said, Joel, since you and I met in 19, that's my dog Lulu.
Yeah, I figured.
She sees a squirrel or
I know your
something.
kids are grown, so it wasn't them. So
Yeah. So I say to Joel, I said, look, when you and I started, I was doing 80% tours and 20% television. And over the next 15 or 20 years, those ratios did this, right? And I would be interested in your thoughts on that, which ended up in the book. But what happened is that basically I got invited to do more and more television, and I found it interesting and fulfilling. And I think somewhere along in there, the perception in the world was that he's a TV guy, but it wasn't any decision I made. It just sort of evolved
Just
like
happened. Yeah.
that, And the
Yeah.
last tour I did was 1999.
Wow.
Um,
Well, I'm here to tell you that it's probably worked out okay for you. I think
well,
it might
I
have
think
been
so.
good decisions you
I
made
think
somewhere
so.
along
Although
the way.
I was talking to Winky at Tate the other day about doing a tour for somebody.
Yeah.
It didn't pan out, but I'd like to do one more
Really?
at least. Well,
Oh,
because
wow.
I still know how to do this.
Yeah. Well, and the
Um,
cool thing is now, Alan, not that I'm calling you an old guy or anything, but a lot of the tours for some of the older artists now, like a lot of the classic artists, they're not bus tours anymore. So it's
well,
a
right.
whole lot easier. You fly in,
Well,
you go
see,
to your hotel.
Here's the thing too. That they're also so much based on video screens that I feel like I'd be really comfortable and effective creating powerful images in that sort of setup.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, my guess is that if the universe understands that Mr. Branton wants to do another tour, Mr. Branton is probably going to do a pretty major tour here
C'est la vie.
coming up
Whatever.
awful soon. So, yeah. I mean, again, like I think it's so cool that artists in their 70s and 80s are still touring right now. And they've just made it a little easier, like this Rush 50 something tour. I was talking to Howard, and every single city is multiple shows, and there's no buses, and so you're in LA for 5 days, then you go to somewhere else and you're there for 4 days, and then you go somewhere else and you're there for 5 days, and that's like a series of residencies, like it's just easier.
That whole world has changed. See, when I was touring, people toured to promote their record.
Yeah.
And they had a record out, or even in the beginning, it was probably vinyl, and then comes cassettes and CDs and all that. They have a record out, and that's the heart of their income.
Yeah. You lose money on touring.
And quite often they would.
Yeah.
And then now all that's flipped, where they make all their money in what back in the day we quaintly called personal appearances.
Yeah.
And so the shows have to be worth the money they charge for them. Jesus.
Yeah.
I was looking at my old files the other day, and there was I saw that the tickets for the Paul McCartney show that I advanced in 1976, the ticket price was $8.50.
Jesus. Wow. It ain't that now.
Nope.
Yeah. It ain't that now. Yeah. That's a whole different discussion. What's going on with ticketing, and especially the secondary market. Well, it's funny because there's an alternate ticketing guy out there that I had on my podcast, I don't know, a month ago or something. Really interesting guy. And most of what he does is electronic stuff, electronic music festivals, or sort of fancy raves and stuff. And he does all the ticketing for those events. And because I said, you're a bit of a masochist going in business against Live Nation, who own pretty much 360 degrees of everything: the venue, the artist, the ticketing, the merch, everything. And but we were talking about this, and we went through some statistics. And one of the things I didn't know, like Taylor Swift, for example, the most expensive ticket, I believe, was like $475 face value, and that was for the floor seats, which ultimately sold for about 10 grand. And the cheapest ticket, I think, was like $79 or something, which no one paid, because they put them up for sale. And then there's thousands of bots that just go in and buy all the tickets, and they're all gone, like snap of a finger, and they're all gone. And so, yeah, it's a wacky world. They got to do something about that because, first of all, having just billionaires' kids or billionaires themselves in all of those seats really makes shows boring. And the fans at some point, rebel against it, I think. I just think there's a pushback from all of this that's going to happen. And, I can't believe what people are asked to pay for tickets these days. And yeah, it's frightening. So, but Sir Paul can charge it for sure because he's a
I
Beatle.
I I should try to see more of those shows. I don't. They're not as handy to me where I live, and I don't make the
Yeah.
effort. Um,
Taylor
we
didn't come to Bozeman?
No. Well, actually, I was talking to some friends about. I was talking to Brad Hafer and Steve Cohen last summer about going to see Metallica,
Yeah.
who I consider to be the second best band in the world still working, and I
Who's
just
the
love
best?
U2,
Oh, well. Okay.
and I just love seeing them. It's just so perfect.
I saw it last summer in Edmonton. I
Yeah.
was up in Canada, so I went and saw it in Edmonton. Really cool show. I was never a
Yeah.
fan either, but God, they put on a show.
I was never a fan of either one of them until I saw
Yeah.
them,
Yeah.
and then I was just stunned at how powerful it is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to describe Metallica because I was down on the ground right in front of these God knows how many massive subs that are buried underneath that stage.
Right.
And it felt like whatever's left of my hair was being blown off of my head at that point. It felt like I'd never hear or feel anything again. It was wild. So, um, it- so going back to this transition, because it's just remarkable and interesting to me. Where do you get the energy for a televised live performance that you would get from being live in that audience? Like how do you reproduce that energy to where people are watching it, whether it's a big screen or a small screen or a phone screen, and they're feeling a similar like excitement or whatever you want to call that?
Well, let's see. I'll take a crack at this. This method has evolved over a long period of time, but step one of the things that's true is that television is a close-up medium, right? So when you televise a show, well over half the shots are going to be close-ups of the various performers, depending on if it's a single artist or it's a group or whatever. They're going to be like I've done a bunch of shoots with U2. Let's compare the two. So you do a shoot with U2, and you decide. And I think this sort of goes back to seeing the Beatles, right? These four people are equal philosophically. They weigh the same amount in the hearts of the audience. Even though Bono is kind of the leader because he's the singer, in a television context, all four of them are equally interesting to look at. And so you like those close-ups so that they're really flattering and attractive. And then you arrange the lighting that's in the background to be absolutely outrageous and crazy, but and appropriate to the moment, whatever the song is. But you physically focus it and position it relative to the cameras so that it pushes energy into the picture, but it doesn't spoil the close-up. So you're physically
Interesting.
keeping those two activities separate, but the camera sees them as the same.
Interesting.
So it's layering, really.
Yeah.
Right. And I kind of came across this 25 years or so ago. I had a really, really crazy, outrageous programmer working on some shows, and he couldn't take much coaching about pictures and close up keeping from spoiling the close-ups and all that stuff. So I basically said, well, the way to address this is arrange the lights so that no matter what he does with them, they can't spoil this person's face. I just layer it behind and tell him to go for it, but he can't get at that face with any of those lights because they're too far out. It's just a layering thing, and then so that really worked, and I started developing that notion and refining it. And see now, today I have on most of my shows I have the best programmer in the world, Felix Peralta, and he understands television as well as I do. And so we do that layering thing that I described, but in a much more sophisticated way. And we can take more risks because we can even trash a close-up. We can trash it terribly, but Felix understands by the time they really come to the close-up on television, I'm going to get clear. But when I see it from a distance, I'm going to have it look like this person is melting down, for example.
Yeah.
But then when the close-up comes, and all that is just a decision tree about what's the director going to see at a given time and what does the music dictate. Is this getting at it at all, or?
Yeah, no, but is this all your own show, or is this also considered the same basic function if you're layering on top of the band's LD, for example?
Oh, yeah, you do the same thing.
Really?
You do the same thing. Like we did, I probably did 40 or 50 of those consultant things back in the day. I just did one the other day, but so what you would do is you'd go through cue by cue. I did a bunch of these with Willie Williams. I did a bunch of them with Peter Morris, and probably I worked with them more than anyone. And we just go through cue by cue and say, okay, the close-up is being spoiled in this section of the show by those lights. Let's just turn them off.
Yeah.
Turn them off, re-record the cue. The face of my person, Christina Aguilera, for example, I did with Peter. Her face is clean now.
Yeah.
And just basically go through and comb the problems out of it.
Interesting.
And if you don't have much time, you might just look at the lights that are doing mischief and just go through and refocus them someplace else. And because everything's, programmed now, nobody's doing anything. Yeah. Nobody's winging it, really.
What about, I ask like touring LDs this a lot, and it's something I've always been curious about. Like, do you ever design to the small screen?
Well, they should, and they're going to do it more and more, I think, because any show of any level of importance is going to have a video component.
And there's 20,000 people in the audience, but there's millions that by tomorrow are going to see this thing on YouTube.
Well, and the cameras are so good now, we don't have to ruin it for the people in the audience anymore either.
Yeah.
Really. Because the cameras can see the audience being excited without too much light on them.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
One of the things that we've developed in the last 10 or 15 years is we've basically turned the lighting design approach upside down. We build the picture right from the ground up. So the most interesting part of the lighting statement is from the deck up to about 12 feet, because that's where the performers are.
I see.
And that's the background that the cameras see. And that's sort of counterintuitive to where we all started many years ago, where your light rig was this thing that was 30 feet in the air
Yeah.
and there was nothing on the ground.
Yeah.
And so, and then when you get into a television situation, the background is nothing. It's just
Yeah.
blah, unless
Yeah.
there's scenery.
Yeah.
So we've kind of
Flipped it.
inverted that in recent years, and it's it's just better television. But to the people at home, I think it looks like an authentic rock show. It doesn't look like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you've worked on so many television specials, all the MTV Unplugged stuff, I think virtually all of it, right? Like,
For about the first 10 or 15 years, I haven't done one in a long time, but
Yeah.
the sort of, as it was
all
sort
the
of
iconic
growing.
ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interestingly, two fun stories. Eric Clapton one, in my memory, is the one that was the sort of breakthrough for that
Genre.
brand.
Yeah.
Because we went to London and shot that in a soundstage, the name of which I forget. It's out by Heathrow.
Yeah.
And we were all jet lagged and exhausted, and it was really hard. And I don't think that I might have done one or two others with lesser names at that point. And so the word comes down later on that he hated it and didn't want to see it released. He didn't like it. He didn't like the way he looked. He didn't like the way he sounded. He didn't mainly sound with a musician of that caliber,
Wow.
And they ended up convincing him to release it and have it played on MTV and so forth. And it was the biggest record he ever had.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing because when I think of the
Hang
song
on,
Layla, the only version in my head is that
one.
the
Yeah.
MTV Unplugged one. Like,
So
that to me is what I hear right now if I listen to that song.
And that event is what made all the other big stars want to be on an Unplugged special.
Huh. What about
So
the
I'm
Nirvana
told.
one? Because that's another sort of iconic one.
That's
in
a
my
really
mind.
big deal, and I got to admit to you, I've been meaning to go back and watch it.
Really, you haven't watched it?
I haven't
not
watched
recently?
it. They've been showing them on one of the streaming services. Has been showing them recently, and I meant to go back and watch it because I can't remember much about it, to tell you the truth.
Because that one was so amazing too.
Yeah.
Like, that was just a really, really good one, the Nirvana one. And I wasn't a fan at all at the time, but it was just so good. And obviously, the way that tragic events happened and stuff, it was also quite significant. But so, MTV Unplugged. Sorry, were you going to say something?
Well, I was going to, one of those stories, Joel Gallen reminded me of this the other day, that he produced and or directed those in those days. And he reminded me, I'd forgotten this, to tell you the truth. When McCartney was going to do his one, we went to see him at his farm in the UK. We flew all the way over there to see him, and he came, and he had a sort of studio in a barn, like those guys do. And he comes down there and he says, "This is what I'm thinking of doing. Tell me what you think." And he sat there and played the entire thing alone on acoustic guitar and sang it to the two of us.
Oh my God, I'd have goosebumps the entire time.
Oh man,
that's wild.
And it's just, there's I'm going to do a little bit of a digression here. There's a piece in our book where Sharon talks about being a lighting designer, being a passport to see things that you would never otherwise see.
Yeah.
And in that context, she talks about doing a show in Ethiopia. But
oh my goodness,
but
being in a barn with Paul McCartney,
that's one of those passport moments that could never happen.
Insane.
And it was not planned. It was just suddenly we're sitting there and here he comes.
Yeah. That is insane. That is so cool. It's like, did you ever see the Paul McCartney thing? I don't remember which network it was on, but where he's sitting in the studio with, my mind just went blank. The guy with the long beard, the producer, um, Rick Rubin. He's sitting in a studio at the console with Rick Rubin, and they're just going through every Beatles mega hit and going, well, what'd you do on that one? And, they'd
Well,
isolate tracks and stuff, and so incredible.
that's one of the things that I intend to do that's kind of on my bucket list, is to sit down sometime and spend a week or so reviewing all the Beatles material and all the, because that was the first, for most of us of my generation, that was the first moment that we thought, this is really different than anything I've ever seen. And it's still as good as anything that's come after.
Yeah.
I mean, go
because
put
of
on
the
any
songs.
song and listen to it.
Yeah.
It's I was listening to a couple the other day. It's crazy how good that stuff is.
Yeah, the songs were just that good, And like you said, it was 4 different people, and they were all sort of, you wanted
they
to
were
like them the
kids.
same, and yeah.
They were kids. They were who was the oldest one? George was oldest, right? Was it?
Yeah.
None
Ringo,
of them were
I
more.
think. Ringo was
Oh, that's
the
right.
oldest.
That's right.
Yeah.
But they were like in their 20s.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that's mind blowing though. That Paul McCartney thing you were talking about. But these so MTV Unplugged, like all the stuff you did, to me is just mind blowing. But you also got you got Emmys for stuff. What did you get Emmys for?
Well, I've only actually won 2 Emmys. I've been nominated 10 times.
Yeah.
But I only won twice. We won for, I got nominated for the first one in 1981, I think, for a Diana Ross special on CBS. And then the most recent one was last year for Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction. But the 2 we won were for Bette Midler, which I did with Peter Morris.
Yeah.
And the other one was for Rock and Roll Hall of Fame 3 years ago, I think.
You've done all of those as well, right?
Yeah.
Or a lot of them.
Yeah.
All of them?
20-something years.
Wow. And Super Bowls, you got to throw a couple Super Bowls in there.
A couple Super Bowls. I think I'd like to believe that we'd still be doing Super Bowls, but we were part of the team that was connected with the wardrobe malfunction.
Uh-oh.
And and so everybody associated with that was kind of blackballed by the NFL after
Baby
that.
went out with the bathwater.
Pretty much.
As they say. Yeah. Yeah. Which I get it, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
These big corporate people, that's what they do,
Right.
That's how they shelter themselves from the problems is, okay, we've taken care of it. We fired everyone, But,
right.
yeah.
Well, who knows? That's a very fun and interesting job to do. In fact, Sharon, my co-author in the book, that's how we started talking about a Super Bowl, and that's how we came to write the book. She and I were speaking, and it was during COVID, and she was teaching at the University of Cincinnati, and she said, I would you like to speak to my students, because we're doing all this as a Zoom thing because nobody can be in class.
Yeah.
And they were curious about, how do you do a Super Bowl halftime? And I started describing it to her, and she was pretty interested and surprised at some of it. So I spoke to her class for 3 semesters, I think, during COVID. And at the end of the third one, she said, I think this is a textbook. And what we tried to do in the book is to cover the parts of doing this work, and this is relevant to some of your questions, cover the aspect of doing this work that is not just lighting theory and what looks good and why, and and the craft, if you will. We tried to approach, what is it like if I want to do this for a living? What am I gonna? How do I know that I can go to some of these circumstances that the client is going to invite me to, and how do I be effective out there? How do I ensure that I can deliver? Because a lot of these shows that are not in a proper theater are in all kinds of insane places with not enough time and all sorts of problems that you have to solve, and you can't find that knowledge in most of the schools. They will talk about how to light a Broadway play, and that's really important. As far as I'm concerned, Broadway play is the gold standard of entertainment in America, just in terms of how impeccable and perfect it is. But if you do this for a living, that isn't where you're going to be.
Yeah, I was going
So
to say that. Yeah. Yeah, but
uh,
is it still appropriate, I guess, though, that that's what we teach in school is everything's a theater?
um, I think Sharon could probably answer that better than I can, because she has a background somewhat similar to mine, and she's also an educator and college
Yeah.
professor. I think that the infrastructure that's been laid down with the physical plants and the colleges and the high schools and all that are based on theater. Um, and that's why our book title is what it is, Lighting Design Beyond Theater.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't think it's inappropriate to teach that, but I think there's more that you will need to know if you're going to uh, light some of the special events or TV productions or whatever
Well, yeah,
that
and then there's also the practical side of it all because, without sounding like a jerk, if you come out of school, you're going to quickly realize that the least amount of money you can make is working in a theater. And if you
well,
want to really make a living from it, you're probably going to want to, light shows or events or industrial, corporate theater or whatever you want to call it. Um,
it's probably fair to assert that nobody in education is doing anything wrong insofar as they understand it. But, going back to our conversation at the very beginning, this whole new world of entertainment that happens in larger places and all over the place and in all sorts of wild and different circumstances, that to quote Sharon, that is all evolved in one lifetime.
yeah,
And
true.
and it's probably only in the last 10 years that the technology is such that you could do something like a Taylor Swift show in stadiums all over the world, and no matter how much money you threw at it, you can do it and expect it to work
Yeah,
correctly all the time. That's new. This is a
yeah,
really, really, I don't even know what you call this business. I kind of call it special events, but it's really an immature creature compared to theater or film or even
yeah,
TV.
yeah.
So I think it's not fair to expect it to be fully formed and perfectly staffed and have all these people trained to operate in it,
Yeah,
but we're going to have to go there.
yeah. Well, it just seems like that's where the majority of the opportunities are. Theater is obviously still extremely important, but it's not growing at the rate that, the live, music or whatever.
It's just the economics, right?
Yeah.
One of my mentors told me a story about, I think he was associated with one of the folk artists in the mid '60s, and he said they booked a gig at the theater in Berkeley, and and they had a hit record in the top 10 at that time, and so they sold a second show, and the demand was still so insane that they couldn't stay another day or come a day early because of their itinerary. They said, well, what if we move it to the field house, which seats 10,000 instead of the theater, which seats 1,200, And somebody goes, ooh, 10,000 tickets in one throw. So those kinds of decisions and
Hence all the
epiphanies were
stadium
happening all
shows.
over the place
Yeah.
as pop music started attracting bigger audiences, and here we are.
Yeah.
Now
But
everybody's.
But I think at the
Yeah.
end of the day, most people, like, I know for me, and I'm old, but for me, if I want to go see, like, if Led Zeppelin was going to play more shows or whatever, I'd rather see them in, a 5,000 seat theater than a 20,000 seat hockey arena, or certainly much more than in a 75,000 seat stadium. Personally, I understand the economics. I understand how it makes a lot of sense financially and all of those things, logistically even, but I'm not a fan of stadium shows. I don't want to see bands in stadiums, personally.
Me neither, because
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with having to get in there,
Yeah, that too. Yeah. Jeez.
But here's the thing, though. You and I would rather see them, in a smaller place,
Yeah.
obviously. But the thing that's interesting is that the technology has now caught up with the economics, right?
Yeah.
We did a TV shoot the other day, about a year ago now, in a Chicago arena with a stand-up comedian, one man telling jokes.
Yeah.
And the setup was a stage in the center with 3 big video screens above it on a triangle configuration, right? And 4 or 5 cameras, looking at him from various angles. And so the directing of the video screens was so effective and so much in sync with his performance that the person in the top of the arena who was looking straight at that big screen with the face 30 feet high, the joke paid off better for him up there than it did for the people in the 15th row.
Yeah.
You could it was that became a really, really good seat.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
of the way the whole thing was designed.
Yeah. That's
And so
cool.
that kind of turned my head around a little bit, because I've seen these screens for years, and you have too, and you see them used so ineffectively and stupidly.
Yeah.
But I saw that and I thought that is good. That's good for his bottom line, and it's really good for the audience. That's a good seat up there.
Yeah. It's IMAG done well.
Yeah.
And the triangle configuration and stuff sounds like it was very cool as well. But I never forget something that Mark Brickman said on my podcast once. He said, I went and saw the Stones, whichever tour it was recently, with the iPhones, basically the screens that looked like 4 iPhones. And he said that those screens were cool, but there was a problem. And I said, oh, what, they weren't working right or whatever? And he said, no, the screens made Mick Jagger look small. And, you can't make Mick Jagger look small. And I understood what he said. But at the same time, I mean, when it's in a stadium, I think you're just trying to fill people's eyes with so much stuff going on or whatever. I don't know. Like, for me, it just doesn't work. I don't like stadium shows.
I didn't see it, so I can't say
neither.
for sure.
Yeah.
But I do know that one of the really big problems with that whole IMAG thing, really in the beginning, now people are doing a much better job of it now, but the problem with it was in the beginning that the people directing it wanted to direct it like it was a TV show.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of true IMAG. And so what would happen is that you would end up seeing about a third of the time, you'd see the image of somebody on the screen, whoever the featured performer was, that was the same size as the live person on the stage. And I'm thinking, how did that help me?
Yeah.
Wh-
Yeah. Yeah.
I
That
don't
makes a
understand
lot of
that.
sense. What a, completely common sense comment to make,
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of these things are common sense,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
the I did a little consulting with Willie Williams when U2 played the Sphere, just in how I'd like the close-ups, and he is really, really wise in the use of all this stuff. They had some wonderful video material that they played here and there, and they'd use iMag really pretty much. They use some head to toe images, but they'd be 30 feet high, or they'd use just faces. And a great deal of the time, they didn't use any iMag at all. They did other things. And then in the sort of middle section of the show, the screens were turned off. You just saw the band on the stage, and that's it.
Wow.
And they would it was really brave, and they would do a series of 5 or 6 songs, I forget how many, that were the ones that historically in their repertoire they knew that the audience would be emotionally empowered by and sing along. And Bono would, an example is the song All I Need Is You, and he would sing a lyric, and then he would hold the mic up to the crowd, and they would sing back
Yeah.
at him, "All I Need Is You," loud.
Yeah.
And see, turning the screens off and letting that happen,
Yeah.
that's wisdom, I say.
Well, that's an artist and a creative team who know their
Yeah,
audience, who
yeah.
really intimately know what their audience wants. Yeah. I like
And
that.
so that's another one of those passport things where I say, God, I'm really glad I saw that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really glad I got to
I
see that.
struggled with it. Like I wasn't there, and so admittedly I was not there. But when people sent me video or I saw video online of the U2 Sphere thing, I really struggled to find Bono. Like I'm going, where is Bono? Like I'm looking everywhere on this video, and it took me forever to find this little guy on a stage down at the
I
bottom.
think you kind of had to be there, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, that's what
Uh,
everyone said. They said it
and
was mind blowing.
the film they made of it was a commercial venture. I
Yeah.
I I surmise.
Yeah.
Um, but that was very courageous for them to be first.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and it obviously was a massive success, so
Yeah,
good on them.
60
Um,
shows.
yeah, that's just wild. It's wild. Do you think the whole Sphere thing is going to continue to succeed? Is it going to be a big deal, or is it just going to wear its welcome
Y-
out and become a
I don't know.
planetarium?
To be fair, I haven't seen any of the other shows that have happened in there.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm vaguely aware, just through rumor, that the thing cost a fortune to build, well
Yeah.
beyond what was estimated. And
Yeah.
so, it becomes kind of a financial venture at that point. Can
Like
you?
$2.5 billion or something, right?
Yeah, I heard more,
Oh,
but
wow.
but
Yikes.
that's sort of out of my
Yeah,
realm,
yeah. That's somebody else's
Um,
gig. Yeah. So
but
you
Vegas
brought,
is the perfect place for it, because
yeah,
you can always put that number of people in there
yeah. There's
because
always going to be an audience
they're
in
in town
Vegas.
all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and people are looking for something to do. So as long as
Yep,
you put artists in there
yep,
that are capable of putting bums in seats, as they
yep,
say, I think you're gonna do okay. And the thing is, even just with like weird EDM content and stuff, I think the
yep,
place is viable. Like so
yep.
even if they get tired of putting bands in there or something, I think they can find other uses and keep it busy. I just don't know if financially it's going to be wildly successful unless you're charging $1,000 for a ticket or something. We spoke very briefly earlier about technology and how happy you are, how, seeing technology now that actually is reliable, especially automated lighting technology. And believe me, I was also there when it wasn't reliable. I worked for Martin in the early days with the PALs and et cetera. And, they were always a little bit innovative, but, tended to be broken quite often. Um, so, first I would start with, like, you've witnessed obviously a few decades of lighting technology, evolution in lighting technology, and, outside of just going from fixed position stationary lights to moving lights, what are some of the most significant changes that you've seen or evolutions that you've seen in lighting?
Um, well, let me think a second here. Let me just sort of reflect,
Yeah,
if you will, and maybe this will
of course.
maybe this will turn into an answer. So if I get the first batch of I'm petting the cat. I get the
No
first
worries.
batch of BL1s, and it's thrilling, really. It's just thrilling what that stuff can do. But you start to realize it's incredibly limiting. It will do a few good things, and that's all. And it breaks all the time.
Yeah.
So it's better. So we use that as a kind of as a toy. That's a little bit unkind. Not as a toy, but as a special. Right? We use it as a special. We'd use it in the Dinah Ross show that I started using it with, and then later I used it with Bowie and others. You would find places to move it. You would find places to use the colors that it would produce, which were way more interesting than the color you could get out of an incandescent light with gel. Just another palette altogether, and
Yeah.
you could change them. And then we would use the movement at times when something in the music called for movement. I didn't move them as much as some people. And then they start to, you get into and there was no time on that console. It was just turning a knob or moving a fader. So you couldn't record time. You couldn't save the cues. The cues were in the console, and there was no disk drive. So the thing was really primitive. So which limits it limits how much you want to rely on it, because it's liable to fail and screw you any minute, right? And at the same time, it's so intoxicating that you go for it. So then the Series 200 comes along, and the 300, and then Martin starts to come in, and what's that company in Texas?
High end,
High
yeah.
end, and and then I love the color. What's the name of that wash light they had?
Studio color.
Studio color. I love
Yeah.
that thing. I
Yeah.
love
It was
that
a good
thing.
light.
I love the color. I
Yeah.
love the way you could
Beam shaping.
control the beams and all that.
Yeah.
I just love that thing.
Yeah.
But still, it's none of it is reliable enough that you can risk using it on the performers, because if it fails or doesn't do what you need it to do at any given moment, the show falls apart.
Yeah. Your singer's in the dark.
And even if it works,
Yeah.
let's say I've got 6 performers out there that I want to do a backlight on. It's tricky because they don't match.
Yeah.
Because of lamp life and all this stuff, none of it looks the same from lamp to lamp to lamp. It's really funky.
I remember I went to work for High End for a brief time, and I remember doing a show, and I believe it might have been Greg Brunton, but I remember doing a show. We didn't do the show. The lights all came from Vanco or Bash or
Right.
whoever it was, but it was like 200 or 300 studio colors, and it was for a talk show, Rosie O'Donnell at Universal, I think, in Orlando, and on the outdoor stage. And so I went there, and I'm standing next to Greg, and he's, I don't remember, he was programming or something was happening, and he's looking at me, and he's like, "Do you see what I see?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it looks great, fantastic." And he goes, "Marcel, there's like 7 different color temperatures up there. I
Right.
got whatever it was, 200, 300 lights with 7 different color temperatures that I can count. And there's probably more than that. What are we
Right.
going to do about this?" And this was his first show, I think, with studio colors. And I was like, and long story short, High End had to send in like 300 brand new, whatever the lamp was, MSR 575s.
I had the same experience with studio colors on a show where I was using them on some white scenery, and it was really blatantly obvious how poorly they all match each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and but see, in hindsight, you sympathize with the suppliers because these lights are used all over the place, and the lamps get changed at different times and have different numbers of hours on them. And what are you supposed to do?
Yeah.
You can't give everybody new bulbs every time.
Yeah.
So
Well, you can't charge for new bulbs every time.
right.
Yeah.
So, but see, slowly but surely, all these problems get addressed.
Yeah.
And now I know I'm kind of skipping about 2 decades, but we use a fully automated system on all our shows. We're doing the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame next week. Let's see, 8th of November. And no time is wasted on shit like that.
Yeah.
It's just, because most of it's even LED now, and if something doesn't match something else, you just get on the console and match it.
Yeah.
And so if you read Rusty Boucher's interview in my book, the vision that they had is now reral.
Yeah.
50 years later, or 40, or however much it is.
Yeah, it took
40
a
years
minute.
later.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the great story that they tell is that when they set the first batch of 50 lights up in the shop after they got them all going, the console wasn't finished, so they just had them on a laptop, and they hooked them all up to see if what would happen, see if they all worked, and somebody turned a knob, and they all moved together. And he said nobody was expecting that. We thought we were making a light that you didn't have to get on a ladder and touch it to put the light where you wanted it to go.
Yeah, it was just
That's
like a
what
repositionable.
that's what we thought we were doing. And we didn't have to buy gel, and we didn't have to get on a ladder and touch it. And then when it moved, we were all surprised. Every man that was there was surprised, which is wild, isn't it? And we wasted the next 30 years moving them and calling that enough, calling that good enough.
Yeah.
I say.
Yeah. Yeah, it took a while to take, sort of a leaps and bounds jump from that technology forward.
And that's not to criticize anybody. It's just sort of the way, what's the term for that? It's like technological determinism. Because it moves, we're going to move it.
Yeah.
A
lot. Yeah, a lot, all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like Chekhov. If the gun comes on stage, we got to shoot it.
Yeah. Yeah, true. So, did you, obviously another shift, and you've already talked about it, is the shift to LED. Did you struggle with that, obviously, because of television, because of the flicker and the color and all of these things?
For a little while, we did.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing as with the automated lights in the beginning. You didn't use the LED fixtures for anything that was fragile. For quite a while, we never used them on the actors. We'd
Yeah.
use them to paint scenery or do this or do that. But now we do, because they're so reliable and stable.
Yeah.
And the power draws down, and the heat and all, and the noise.
Yeah.
I mean, God, I'd forgotten about that shit. For the first 20 years or so, you fire up a automated lighting system with not very many lights, 30 or 40, and it
Yeah.
sounds like a jet taking off.
Yeah, doing the whole reset thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
It's all gotten so much better. I mean, I tell that to young moving light sales guys today, which makes me sound even older than I am. You have it so good today, you young guys. Everything works. Like, you can buy American DJ fixtures now, and they work great.
Yeah.
It's wild. It's wild. So, moving on here, because I know I can't keep you all day, but if you look back, and this is sort of a stupid podcast question that everyone has to ask you, but what's like one of your proudest moments, one of your proudest projects? What's like, if you had to put, the one thing up there that I did this, what would that be?
I would guess that that first David Bowie project. I think it, because if you go back and watch it, you see that the cameras are crude and that it's not super high resolution, but it holds up perfectly. And he was so perfect every moment of that show. And so the tour was really great, and the television special is really great. And I think that a lot of the touring jobs I got after that, people got in touch with me because they wanted something that good. And that was, and I was really frustrated for a long time, because you could never get it to be that good again, because nobody's as good as him.
Yeah, nobody's David Bowie except David
Nobody's
Bowie.
as good as him.
Yeah.
But in a larger context, I was really lucky in early on to work with those sorts of artists, with Diana Ross, and I did tour with the Stones and Jagger, and with Bowie 2 tours, and even Ozzy. I did one, did two actually, and Whitney, and you start to have an appreciation of the power that one person has to move that crowd. And if you're paying attention, and with people who are that accomplished, it's hard to miss it. You realize they don't need anything from me. They've got command of this puppy if the house lights are on. So if I want my lighting to mean anything, I want to attach my thinking to what they're doing, and how the audience is receiving it, and so forth. I want to get on that train, not try to do some sort of light show.
Yeah, you want to stay out of the way. Just frame the artist and stay out of the way, right?
You want to, you don't want to, you want to stay out of the way, but you want to be right there, And usually, often that's counterintuitive. When the most powerful moments happen, that's when you get out of the way.
Yeah.
You know, when she's going to nail something or he's going to nail something, everything goes away and they're standing there in one light. You
Yeah.
know, and then so I'd say that I forgot what your question was. Oh, the thing I'm most proud of. I think I'm going to mangle your question a little bit. I'm
It's all
most
right.
proud of the fact that I figured that out early and was lucky to be exposed to people like that. And I built my life around it. You know, um, one of my mentors used to say, light on the money.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So you've been doing this a long time. And
52 years.
what inspires you? How do you stay inspired on year 52?
Oh, I just think it's a wonderful, it's a wonderful life.
Yeah.
Um, it's, there's the, the presentations, whatever they are, would be it music or whatever it is, that's one side of the coin. And then the audience comes, and the audience comes with an open heart, and they're expecting to be excited and satisfied. And that's the same every time, every single time. And it never grows old watching that.
Yeah. So many people say that kind of thing, like house lights go or whatever. It's like you get that feeling every night. Every time
Right.
the house lights go down, you get that same feeling, which tells you I got to keep doing this. I kind of like it.
See, and we talk about the artists and the music, but see, the audience creates this too.
Yeah.
In fact, they may be more essential to it than the content. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
there's certainly you can't do without them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we've
Um,
all been involved in really great, I guess, shows or events with bad artists. But when it's a really bad audience, I think it's a whole different experience at that point, right? So, which is kind of what you
you
just
get
said.
those. You get those.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another old friend of mine used to say that that audience looked like a painting.
Yeah. Not what you want. So your book, Lighting Design Beyond Theater, uh, give me like one key takeaway or key insight from that book.
Um, Actually, we were just there in a way. I'll give you two. The last chapter is called "Learning from the Audience," and in the earlier in the book, we've talked about you know field craft and how to organize things and how to think about it and so forth. But in the end, uh, you learn more from understanding who the audience is for the particular thing you're working on than any other question you can explore. Because if you try to align yourself with where they are, I mean, it's just common sense. You'll be more effective in whatever project that is. The other chapter I really like is about readiness, um, and I think that's probably the most important lesson I learned at a sort of technical organizational level is that anytime I've been disappointed in the outcome of what I got, it was because I wasn't ready uh, or prepared well enough to do what was needed when the time came. Uh, and that's an acquired skill also. And in fact, I suggest in that chapter that that's not something you can do by yourself. In our current model, our prep, design, build process involves 4 or 5 people, and as soon as the job is known, we get on a Zoom call or a conference call together and start talking about it right then. We don't
Yeah.
know much about it other than the date and kind of what the content is. We start talking about it right then, you know, and progressively decide what form it's going to take and how it's going to work. And we invite the vendor into those conversations right from the start also. So they can know what we're thinking, and quite often, and usually it's Brad or Alex Flores or one of his people, and they'll say, "Okay, I see what you're thinking here, but I can't do that for the money you have, or I don't have enough of those, or that won't work the way you think it will, or something." And so by the time we have a load in, this thing is lit. We know what it's going to look like now.
Yeah.
We know exactly what every light's doing. We know how we're going to use it. We've got, and so that's how you get it to be really good, is you are ready when the talent comes on stage to do it. And
that's such an important point in everything. Like whether you're an athlete or like my son being a racing driver, when you go out and race, like when bad things happen, you're prepared for it,
right,
and if you're
right,
not prepared for it, bad things happen, like they
right.
end poorly. But if you're prepared for it, you can get through it, right? So to me, that's such an important thing, preparation and being ready, like you said.
It's everything,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
going back to the equipment considerations, the fact that all this equipment is really reliable now, and when we put the lighting system in the air and turn it on, it's all working and ready.
Yeah.
We can aspire to do things that we never could have done 15, 20 years ago, because we would turn it on and then we'd start fixing it.
Yeah.
Right. And
Well,
all that time is lost.
yeah. And like you talked about bringing the vendor on early, because, the other thing about gear these days is it's relatively ubiquitous. You
Yeah.
don't, like back in the day, if you designed a show around a VL5, you needed VL5s. That's it. That's all there was.
Yeah.
But today, you need a X lumen wash light with
Totally.
these features. And that could be
Totally.
a Chauvet, a Roadie, a Elation,
Totally.
a Acme.
Totally.
There's 10 brands that could be, and it makes it much
Totally.
easier to design, I
My
would guess.
my team will tell you that I don't even remember what the names of these things are anymore.
Yeah, because you don't need to.
We talk about them in terms of their task and function.
Yeah.
And somebody will say, "Oh, well, I know we used this last time, but there's this new thing. We could use that instead. It does the same thing and it's cheaper," or whatever.
Yeah. We've got them in stock. Yeah.
That too. That too. And
yeah.
so this is complicated,
Yeah.
but the equipment is not the reason you can't do something interesting anymore.
Yeah. We've evolved to that point, I think, for sure. Yeah. So the next time I see you is going to be at this event in Vegas called Dining with Dinosaurs, and we appreciate that you're going to be one of our dinosaurs. And it's funny because when we first came up with this name, I was like, none of these friends of ours and designers and riggers and audio people and stuff, they're not going to want to be called dinosaurs. Oh, yes, they will. And it's funny because we have a waiting list for people who want to be dinosaurs.
It occurred to me that I didn't want to be called a dinosaur.
Yeah.
But it's your event and it's not my call. And I hope we can contribute something to the younger people who are looking at this.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you is I assume, based on your book, based on some of the other teaching stuff that you've done, that you are a fan of passing on information to younger people entering the business.
Totally. I mean, I don't think there's enough people to do the work that's going on right now, much less the work we'll see as the thing grows and expands. There aren't enough people who know what they're doing. And that's not to be mean to anybody who knows less than I think they should. It's just we don't have a good enough mechanism to pass these things along and prepare people. We
Well, and
just don't.
a couple of contributing factors too. First, you had COVID, where a lot of people left the industry forever, didn't come back.
Yeah.
You know, and secondly, coming out of COVID, everything kind of went batshit crazy and expanded like mad, and you know, more shows, more bands touring all at the same time. Everybody wanted to go out, and so the business expanded and the workers contracted basically, and
Right.
so, you know, and then I think a lot of companies have done a really great job creating training programs and
Yep.
bringing new
Yep.
people into the industry, but it's all happened sort of in a vacuum, and it's all happened very quickly in a big rush. And so I love that I'm able to put this thing together, even though the name is kind of silly, but I love that we're able to put this thing together to really pair up, you know, sort of mentors with groups of people who want to do the same thing I just did, just sit and pick
Well,
the
we
brain of
should.
a legend, you know?
We can keep talking about this as we go down the line, because
Yeah.
I think we've got all these people that you've collected, and there are others that, you know, couldn't be there or whatever. But what we have, or what we know, is what I'd call fieldcraft. You know, there's a zillion people that you could put into a traditional theater, and they know what to do. They know more than I do. But you put somebody in a field in Louisiana or in a football stadium in South Africa, and that's exciting work, but boy, it's
Whole different set of challenges.
it's a different creature altogether.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
see, the thing is, if you call up any of the half dozen vendors we know, or you call up Tate, or you call up Claire, or you call up, you can assemble a show, a huge show, and put it in the middle of the Sahara Desert with generators and broadcast it to the entire world perfectly. The technology is now in existence to do that, but there's not enough people to do it in enough places. And of course, things like that on smaller scale happen all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very important. And we appreciate you getting involved in it. I mean, you're a huge name. You're obviously someone who people are going to want to talk to, and so we appreciate you getting involved in that. It's been a huge amount of work for Sarah and I getting involved with LDI to put this thing together, and yeah, so it's going to be fun.
I look forward to it.
Thank you so much, Alan. I appreciate your time today, and look forward to seeing you in Vegas.
You're welcome.
All right.
See you there.
Have a great one. Yeah.